There is a procedure for when someone dies on your flight. Most passengers will never see it. Most flight attendants will never use it. But it exists, it is detailed, and it has been quietly refined for decades by the people who run the world's airlines. What happens in the rows around you, in the galley behind the curtain, in the cockpit above your head, when a passenger stops breathing at 38,000 feet, is one of the most carefully managed secrets in commercial aviation. Not because it is shameful, but because keeping you calm is part of the job. This is how it actually works. Most people assume this never happens. It does. A death occurs on a commercial flight roughly once every 45,000 flights. That sounds rare until you consider that tens of millions of commercial flights operate every year worldwide. The math adds up to hundreds of deaths in the air annually, most of them from cardiac events, most of them in older passengers on long-haul routes. The FAA does not require airlines to report in-flight deaths. Airlines are not obligated to publish their numbers, so the true figure is unknown. What we do know is that every major airline has a procedure for it, every cabin crew member is trained in it, and it happens quietly enough that the passenger 3 rows back often never finds out. The first thing cabin crew are trained to do is not reach for the body bag. It is to call for help. When a passenger collapses, the first call a flight attendant makes is not to the cockpit. It is to the cabin. Is there a doctor on board? That announcement is deliberate. Airlines operate with ground-based medical advisory services, companies like Med-Air, which are patched in by the crew to guide treatment decisions in real time. But a physician physically present on the aircraft is always the preference. Someone who can assess the patient, use the onboard defibrillator, and make a judgment call that no remote consultant can make from the ground. Every commercial aircraft is required by the FAA to carry an automated external defibrillator. Every crew member is trained to use one. If CPR is started, IATA guidance instructs crew to continue for 30 minutes. If there is no response after 30 minutes, the passenger is classified as presumed dead. That phrase, presumed dead, is not an accident. Some airlines maintain a formal policy that no one can be officially pronounced dead on board an aircraft. Only a licensed medical authority on the ground can do that. So, the crew continues to refer to the passenger as unresponsive. The language is clinical. It is also functional. It keeps the situation from escalating inside a sealed cabin at altitude. This channel covers the systems and procedures most institutions would rather you did not examine too closely. If that is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe. The moment presumed death is established, the procedure shifts entirely. Now, the crew is no longer managing a medical emergency. They are managing a body, 200 other passengers, and the next several hours of flight. The IATA guidelines are specific. Move the passenger to a seat away from other travelers if one is available. If the flight is full, return them to their original seat. Close the eyes. Cover the body with a blanket up to the neck. Fasten the seatbelt. If the airline carries a body bag, that comes first. The crew is trained to use the onboard wheelchair, the same one used to assist passengers with mobility issues, to transport the deceased to the galley or a less visible area of the cabin. The body bag is zipped only to the neck, never fully sealed, because a fully sealed body bag creates a documentation problem. Death must be recorded with a location, and in international airspace, that location cannot be precisely established. If no body bag is available, The blanket is the protocol. The move itself is timed carefully. Crew will typically wait for a meal service when most passengers are occupied and looking down. The aisle curtain goes across. To anyone watching, it looks like a medical assist. That is the point. In 2004, Singapore Airlines installed what the press called a corpse cupboard on its Airbus A340-500, a discreet locker next to one of the exit doors, long enough to hold an average-sized body fitted with straps to secure it against turbulence. The aircraft operated some of the longest routes in the world at the time, 18 to 19 hours non-stop between Singapore and the United States. The cupboard was retired with the fleet in 2013. It was never used. Most airlines do not have that option. On a full flight, the deceased may end up seated next to another passenger covered in blankets for the remainder of the journey. In February 2025, that is exactly what happened on a Qatar Airways flight from Melbourne to Doha. A woman collapsed in the aisle roughly an hour into the flight. The crew responded, attempted resuscitation, and when those efforts failed, tried to move her body to business class. They could not fit the body through the narrow aisle. So they did the next thing the procedure allows. They asked an Australian passenger named Mitchell Ring to move over and place the deceased in the seat he had been sitting in. Ring and his partner, Jennifer Collins, spent the final 4 hours of the flight beside the body. The woman was covered in blankets. A crew member sat with her. Ring later told Australian media that no one offered to move him to one of the empty seats nearby. Qatar Airways conducted an internal review and confirmed the crew had acted quickly, appropriately, and professionally, that all procedures were in line with training and industry standard practice. That statement is worth sitting with, because it was not a rogue crew making a bad call. It was the procedure working exactly as designed. There is no regulation requiring airlines to do anything differently. While the cabin crew manages the body, the captain is making a different calculation entirely. The decision of whether to divert the flight is not made on sentiment. It is made on variables. How far along is the flight? What airports are within range? Whether the aircraft is too heavy to land safely at the nearest one, because maximum landing weight is almost always lower than maximum takeoff weight, and a fully fueled long-haul jet may need to burn down before it can put down. Whether the destination airport has the facilities to properly receive a deceased passenger. Whether diverting would strand 300 people in an airport with no onward connections. If a passenger is still alive and resuscitation is ongoing, diversion is likely. Once death is presumed, the calculation shifts. There is nothing a hospital can do. The most practical option is almost always to continue. The captain notifies the destination airport before arrival. On international flights into the United States, federal law requires the pilot to report any onboard death to the CDC before landing. Ground teams are assembled. Authorities are waiting. When the aircraft lands, every other passenger disembarks first. The deceased and any traveling companions remain on board. Only then do the medical examiners, airport officials, and airline representatives step in. The crew says nothing to the other passengers beyond what is necessary. There is no announcement, no acknowledgement over the intercom. The service continues. The drinks trolley comes back down the aisle, and somewhere behind a curtain or in a seat 3 rows back covered in a blue airline blanket, the procedure carries on exactly as it was designed to. Quietly, professionally, and completely out of sight. The death care industry does not end at the funeral home. It starts the moment a person stops breathing, wherever that happens to be. At 38,000 feet, inside a metal tube moving at 500 miles an hour, The system that handles what comes next was built for efficiency, discretion, and liability management, not necessarily for the people sitting 3 rows away. If you want to keep pulling on threads like this one, subscribe to Funeral Report. Every video on this channel is built the same way: verified, sourced, and focused on the parts of the death industry that nobody explains until you are already inside them. We will see you in the next one.